What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be starting a new project that you may have been seeing in the background while we were working on the Red Evo. And for reference, this is the Red Evo right now. So you're going to be seeing this probably a lot later in time. And the reason I'm doing this is to have content for when I'm unable to post. For example, if I am on vacation or I go on a trip, you guys know I'm active Air Force, so if we get deployed, whatever, I want to be able to carry on the channel if I'm unable to make new content. So this is going to be a completely new project. I'll probably have a few of these kind of recorded, stuck on the hard drive, and that way we got content for you guys at all times. So this Evo 10 was shipped down from South Dakota a few days ago. Essentially 6466 build, car made, a lot of power. And it had a fully built block in it. The problem was it lifted ahead and pulled all the threads out of the old block. So right now he's just got a stock Rally Art motor in here, which is a 4B11T, but it is completely stock, obviously hooked to a 6466. So he's unable to push a lot of power right now without being afraid of blowing it up. So we're just gonna build this engine for him, or at least a little bit more. He doesn't wanna push as much power, but we are going to build it so that way the 6466 can still do its job and produce some jam for him. So this is pretty much my first look at the car. Got sweet bougie license plates. Overall, not too bad. It's got a few dents in it here and there. He did want me to work on his fuel system as well. It is running 2 pumps, but he admitted to it being a little janky, so we're going to get that fixed up. The goal is for him to be able to drive this home back to South Dakota, so yeah, we got to get to work and get this thing dialed in. It did take me a good hour to get the hood open. The latch was broken. The little cable that goes in here was broken and snapped off, so you weren't able to pop the hood. So I ended up having to come up from underneath the bumper and take the whole latch release thing off with these 2 bolts, and then I was able to pop the hood. Yeah. Not the most ideal, but we did get it open, and what I want to do now is get this car running. Now, like I mentioned, it does have a stock Rally R engine in it, but he didn't say that the car didn't run. When I got the car, there's no power to it at all, so I sent him a message, and he said, yeah, when I was sending the car out, I charged up the battery, but I had no power at the key, so we're assuming it could just be like a loose connection at the terminal on the battery. So we're going to try to get this thing going, and yeah, see if we can fire it up. So after hooking a multimeter up to the battery, we're reading not even a volt. So that would be why we have no power at the car. Let's try to get some jumper cables on this, hooked to the Duramax, and we'll see if we can get some power to the car. We definitely have power to the car now, so let's see if there's power inside, and it looks like there is. 57,000 miles on this hog. I did just check oil, we are good, so let's see if we can fire this thing up. Ooh. There she is. It appears that this battery is literally so low that, watch this. Oh, it's actually surviving. The last time I did that, it did die, so we'll see how long this lasts. Yep, there it is. That didn't last long. After running it for about a minute, we got a pretty gnarly oil leak on the ground, so I think best bet is we just start tearing this thing down and yeah, build it ourselves. That way we know exactly what's going on. I have no idea what's up with this engine other than it's 4B11T out of a Rally Art, so I do know it's stock, not sure where it's leaking from. I'm going to assume somewhere down by the pan. It looks like it's too far forward to be from the turbo, so not exactly sure. Like I said, we're going to be kind of working on this behind the scenes. So on top of the Evo that we're working on, the hatch, and my full-time job in the Air Force, we got a lot going on, but I think we can handle it. Down to challenge myself. This Evo is going to help a lot when building our red one. And obviously, by the time you guys are watching this video, hopefully this red one's already done. But when I got the red one, it was my first Evo, and I had no clue where anything went. It was already torn apart when I bought it. So this car is going to help me build that one. Alrighty, we've got the Evo in the garage, and we are ready to start tearing into this thing. So first thing I'm going to do is just get the bumper off. We'll get all of our intercooler piping off, intake off, all the little stuff, and then we'll probably move into draining some fluids. We can disconnect the wiring harness and just plug away at pulling this engine out. Okay, made some solid progress on the good old 4B11. We got the wiring harness all pulled back, all the coolant lines, obviously the whole front end, radiator, everything pulled off. And now we're pretty much left with heater core, turbo kit, the mounts, some accessories, and we still have to drain oil. But other than that, should be able to hopefully squeeze this thing out the top, I'm hoping. These engines are definitely meant to be dropped out the bottom, but because I don't have a lift and I don't have jack stands big enough to lift this thing freaking 10 feet in the air, I'm gonna try to get it out the top. I know it's possible. It's a little bit more difficult, but that's what we gotta do. So I'm hoping we can get the transfer case disconnected from the transmission and then pull the engine and the transmission out as one unit. That's the goal, and probably either tomorrow night or maybe the night after, we'll get this thing slid out. I do still work my full-time job, so whatever you guys see with the cars is whatever I can handle at night. If this was a Subaru, which I've done lots of them by now, we'd have the engine out already. But because it's an Evo, it's something new. This is literally my first time ever touching one of these, so I'm kind of just taking it all in, memorizing where everything goes, and that way, when I go to build mine, which by the time you're watching this video, once again, hopefully that thing's done and driving. But yeah, this is essentially gonna be my teacher for that car. But I'm gonna clean up the shop and I'll pick this up tomorrow. All right, it's the next night now. I have very limited time tonight, probably a little less than an hour. So I at least wanna get the axles pulled, and whatever else we can get pulled after that will be a little bonus. But let's get straight to work and knock these out. Passenger side axle is now out, and I actually went ahead off camera, got the driver side off as well. It's a little bit harder on this side because it's really tight to pop it out of the transmission, but same idea. All it is a little pop and you can pull it out. With the time I have left tonight, I'm gonna go ahead and pop the serpentine belt off, and then I'm hoping we can just pull the power steering pump, kind of flip it off to the side. We can take the alternator off, and AC compressor, I'm hoping we can also just flip off to the side. If we don't have to drain the fluids, I don't see why we would. It saves time and money in the long run, and yeah, it's just easier to put it off to the side. All of of the accessories are now pulled off. I'm pretty sure whatever's left here on this left side of the engine can stay on. We should be able to kind of slide it down and then out this way with everything hanging on there still. The last thing I want to do tonight, and this can go one of two ways, we need to remove this little coolant hose and then pop this little boot off where the clutch fork is, and that's gonna expose our throwout bearing. We need to release that clip, which will take the throwout bearing out of the clutch, and that will allow us to be able to separate the transmission and the engine when the time comes. The issue is that can either take 5 seconds, or I've seen people struggle on it for like 5-6 hours, and some people end up having to cut some stuff apart. So hopefully when we pull this guy off, we can get this thing released pretty quick. If not, it'll be a tomorrow problem. Well, that was my first time ever releasing the nightmare of a throwout bearing on these Evo 10s. Like I said, sometimes they take 3 seconds, so I've heard. Sometimes they take 5-6 hours. That one went in 3 seconds. Once I figured out where to put the screwdriver, I literally stuck it in there, pushed the release for the throwout bearing towards the engine, and then popped the throwout bearing out, and it came right out. I will show you a more of a demonstration once the transmission split apart, but to show you through that little hole is damn near impossible. So I'm gonna end the night on a good note, and I'll pick the camera up tomorrow, but all we really have left is the turbo kit and then a bunch of mounts. We gotta separate the transfer case, and this engine will be ready to pull out. Alrighty boys, I went ahead and made some solid progress off camera just trying to get this done. We got the front tranny mount undone. I got the turbo kit out, and if you look down there, I have the transfer case separated from the transmission as well. There's just 6 bolts, 3 on top, 3 on the bottom. The 3 on top are really easy to get to once you take the turbo kit out. We got the rear tranny mount disconnected, so that's ready to slide out. The only things holding this engine in right now are these 2 nuts on this mount. I already got the back one off, and then this motor mount over here. Everything else should be disconnected, I'm hoping. So what we're gonna do is get this hooked up to the engine crane, and then we can drop that motor mount, drop that tranny mount, and we should be able to kind of spin this up this way and then straight up and out. I'll probably have to move the car backwards a little bit just so we have room up front, because I don't know if I have room for the engine crane. I also went and bought one of these little load leveler guys from Harbor Freight. So essentially the idea of this is we'll have each side hooked up to one side of the engine, and then you can use this handle to level it out how you need it. Because we have to tip this engine so far this way, I figured maybe that'll help us and give us as much control as we can while we're removing this engine. Here goes nothing. We got the crane hooked up to the leveler, which is mounted to 2 of the biggest bolts on this engine. I don't really like how it's set up, but that was kind of my best bet for nice strong mounting points. We got this motor mount removed. The only thing holding this thing in right now is this nut on the tranny mount. Once that's out, this whole thing will be free. So hopefully this works, but let's get you on the tripod and give her a go. I just sliced my hand open. I'll be back. as much as I'd love to say that was cakewalk, that was a pain in the butt. I'm not gonna lie, that was probably the weirdest, kind of most difficult engine pull I've had to do. It's only because we had to pull it out the top. If you guys have jack stands big enough to get the car big or high enough, or a lift, it makes this way easier to drop it out the bottom. But to pull it out the top, you get turning the engine sideways, makes a mess. It's just a pain in the butt all around. But we got it. Engine is out along with the transmission, and it actually sits quite nicely on the floor. Tomorrow, we're gonna pick this thing back up, pull the transmission off and get this in a stand, but I have to go pick up some bell housing bolts because I don't think the ones that go through the transmission are long enough to go through the stand. So we just need some more of those. I have them for my 4B that's sitting on the stand in the corner, but I'm gonna need some extras for this one. I did put the car on the rollers just so we can push it around as we need it. And I do wanna get something to pick the transfer case up a little bit, just so it's not weighing on that steering rack. So we can just put a strap under it and hold it up from something. Other than that, that's pretty much all I'm gonna take care of tonight. Tomorrow, we're gonna get the transmission split from the engine, get the engine stripped down to bare bones, get it to the machine shop, and then once it's back, start the rebuild process and get this thing back on the road. But I'm gonna wrap this video up right here. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you in the next one. Until then, peace out. See y'all later.